the Intellectual Gentlemen's Club.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jason Abbott. This is the Intellectual Gentlemen's Club podcast. We are already at episode 16 with the lovely Nica Noelle. I just want to say again, thank you for subscribing, sharing, and discussing on iTunes, our website, and all the social media out there. Tonight we are sponsored by Sexuality. You will find out in just a minute why. If you haven't heard of Nica Noelle, I'll get to her in just a moment. First, I just want to bring up our affiliate sponsors we have on the website. If you guys like the episode, share it out. If you want to support the podcast, there's a couple different ways you can do it through our affiliate sponsors right through our website, intellectualgentlemensclub.com. We deal with Amazon.com and Onnit.com. Onnit is a total human optimization company. If you're familiar with podcasts, you've probably heard it talk about Alpha Brain, Shroom Tech, Primal Kettlebells, and all the different foods that they supply out there. So if you guys are interested in helping us out, go ahead and click on through there, and anything you purchase through that portal there gives us a little bit of a cut. It's nothing additional to you. We also have a PayPal button on there where you can make a direct donation to if you like. So without further ado, tonight I want to introduce the lovely Nica Noelle. She is a writer, producer, and a director of adult films. She is a winner of the AVN from 2012 and 2013 for... help me out here, Nica. It was the steamiest romantic movie for 2013.
I think my AVN award was for best new line for my new studios.
Okay, and then in this year you were for the steamiest romantic movie. Is that right?
Oh, that was the Feminist Porn Awards. Yeah, my movie Forbidden Lovers from my studio Trans Romantic. Won for steamiest movie.
Okay, great. Also, you've also been called the People's Pornographer, and you're a journalist and blogger on many different topics for written media as well. Is that right?
Correct.
All
yes.
right, cool. So, for people who haven't been familiar with you, I actually first heard about you through listening to Tangentially Speaking with Christopher Ryan. And, yeah. That was a great podcast. I enjoy listening to you, and I think you're like a legitimate porn director out there. I don't know if that's the proper way to say it, but I think there's probably a lot of scumbags out there, and I didn't get that kind of vibe from you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad, I'm glad to hear that I don't come off as a scumbag. That's always good.
Yeah, definitely not. So maybe you could give us a little background on how you got involved in porn and your transition for that.
Sure. Actually, I was working on an article for Spread Magazine about the making of a fetish video, and I decided to make one or participate in one myself so that I could write about it with some firsthand knowledge. And so I did a spanking video, and it was a very interesting experience, and it wasn't what I expected, and it kind of intrigued me and piqued my interest, and I decided to explore doing some other videos, and that led to very quickly my starting to write and direct for a small lesbian company, and I took over their marketing and their creative direction, and sort of brought them to the forefront of the adult industry. And then with that success, I went on to start my own studios with Mile High Media. I started Sweetheart Video, Sweet Sinner Films, and Sweet Cinema Films. And then from there, I left and started my current studios with my partner, AEBN.net. And that is Girl Candy Films, Hot Candy Films, Rock Candy Films, and Trans Romantic.
And those are kind of separated by genres a little bit, right?
Right. That's kind of how it's done in the adult industry is that, that you need to be able to let the fans know what they're going to be seeing in the movie. So the studios are kept separately because not everybody has the same sexual fantasy, and they don't want to open up a movie and start looking at it and realize that it's filled with stuff that doesn't turn them on.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, that's kind of a downer, I would imagine.
yeah, apparently.
So, with your 4 different studios that you have, do you notice that you catch any flack for one studio versus another?
In what
As far
way?
as like dealing with the haters out there, I know you deal with straight, gay, lesbian, and transgender. Do you have any haters that come in from transgender or anything,
Actually,
homosexuality or anything?
the transgender community has been very welcoming and very supportive and wonderful. There have been some, I guess bloggers or fans that post on forums or websites that resent a woman doing writing and directing gay porn. There's been a little bit of backlash from that. Not a lot, but just, definitely more on that side. The fans of lesbian porn, they would prefer that I just do lesbian porn, but a lot of them have actually started watching my boy-girl porn because they liked my lesbian porn. So there's been a lot of crossover, with the fans between my lesbian studio and my quote straight studio, my boy-girl studio.
Okay. And do you notice that a lot of people are coming in just for straight videos compared to others, or are they pretty well balanced?
Are you talking about sales and the audience?
Yes. Yeah, primarily.
It really varies from title to title. In general, I have a very big lesbian film following. Those fans are well established in following everything that I do because that was where I first made my mark, was with lesbian films. But my gay studio is doing amazingly well, and that was kind of a surprise. Nobody really thought that was going to succeed, and my partner just basically gave me a shot at doing a gay movie, putting up the money for it because he wanted me to kind of get it out of my system since it was something I always wanted to do, and he didn't think it would succeed. But the movie really did well, and we decided to go ahead and develop that studio.
Excellent. So, have you noticed that? Well, let's talk about that for just a minute. Do you feel it's important to avoid gay for pay?
Well, I've talked about this a lot in that I think that's become kind of I don't know, it's a way to kind of criticize performers for not necessarily leading a lifestyle off camera that they portray on camera. And I think that's unfair. I think that you can certainly enjoy performing with people of your own sex, whether you're a woman or a man. You can be bisexual in that regard and enjoy having sex with another woman or with another man, but identify more as straight in your personal life and feel more comfortable in a traditional relationship. I think those are two very different things a lot of the time. Excuse me. A lot of the time, it doesn't mean that the person's gay for pay. It just means that for whatever reason, they're more comfortable with the opposite sex when they're off camera. And maybe they go back and forth. Maybe sometimes they date a man, sometimes they date a woman. To just decide that somebody is gay for pay and that everything they're doing on film is fake and they're faking it, I don't think that's fair at all.
That makes sense. It's kind of pigeonholing people where,
Yeah,
sex is...
I don't think sexuality is that cut and dried for
Right.
any of us. We like to pretend that it is, but I really don't see any evidence that it is.
Yeah, it's a very wide spectrum when you look at it overall.
For sure.
So you've got this title, The People's Pornographer, and I was doing some research on you and stuff, but for the most part, I'm understanding is you're into the real love making on camera. You want to see orgasms versus, fake orgasms and all scripted scenes. And it's got more of a romantic feel behind it. And some have called it feminine porn, but I don't really think that's a good way to describe it. I mean, is there such a thing versus, masculine porn versus feminine porn? Where do you draw the line with that kind of thing?
Well, to me, it has nothing to do with politics or gender politics.
Sure.
I'm trying to give people what they want to see, and what I felt was missing from porn, which was realistic representations of attractive people of all ages and body types having sex that looked passionate and authentic. And it's funny because it's always been a joke in society that, with porn, you fast forward through the terrible dialogue and the sex looks really fake, and people have sex in these really strange positions and strange locations that don't look comfortable, and people kind of make fun of it.
Right.
But yet within the industry, I noticed when I came into the industry, there was this perception that this is the way you make porn, and there is no other way to do it, and this is the way it is.
Right.
And so
follow these instructions, right? Here's the recipe, pretty much.
Yeah, it was kind of like when I wanted to do things differently, the response would be, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't shoot real sex positions. And I was just like, but why? Oh, because you can't. You won't be able to see anything. Nobody does that. You don't do it that way, and it won't sell. And I just, hold on, let me turn this off. And I thought to myself, well, how does that make sense? Because I know this is what I look for and can't find, and I know that a lot of people I speak with, when they're looking for an erotic film, they're looking for something along those lines and can't find it. And so why is everybody in porn so determined not to provide the fans with what they want to see? And I decided I would do it anyway. And basically, I shut out what other people in the industry have to say. I shut out the conventional wisdom coming from other people in the industry. And I just listen to the fans. I listen to my own sense of what I want to see, and also what the fans are telling me.
I think that's pretty important. Obviously, the fans are the ones that are supporting it. So
yeah,
that makes the most sense in my opinion. Yeah. So let's go down that road just a minute. Over the years, I've watched my share of porn, as most people do, and I think there's a common consensus that out there, especially with the internet age, that you rarely have to pay for porn. It's readily available and everywhere. So I know it's $1 billion industry, but where does all this money come from with all the free content that's available nowadays?
Well, there is free content available, but also, you have to remember too that people really have to sift through a lot of free content and go looking through these sites to find,
what they're looking for, right?
Different, yeah, like just the kind, maybe one scene from a movie that is maybe what they're looking for, but they don't get the whole movie, or it's kind of labor intensive, from what I understand, to really be able to reliably find what you're looking for free. And secondly, I think that if you develop, and I've said this before, I found it to be true with my own studios, if you communicate with the fans and you try to create things that they want to see and that they want to spend money on and they want to support, they won't want to steal it, and they will want you to continue to be able to make it because they don't want to put you out of business. They like what you're doing, and they'll start to identify with being a fan of your stuff, and they won't want to steal from you. They feel an emotional connection to what you're doing, and that sounds funny to people when it comes to porn, because people think that porn is sort of inherently soulless and that nobody has any real feelings about it, and the people in it are just anonymous or throwaways, and there's nothing redeeming about it at all. But but I know firsthand that the fans really do start to care about the product and about the performers, and they're fans just like any other type of fans of, mainstream movie stars or musicians, or, people who have their favorite band and they don't want to steal the band's music. They want to go and buy it and take part in being a fan.
Right. That's exactly where I was thinking with that. So you used to have back in the day, where it started with Napster and things like that, you would download free music, and it really wasn't seen as such a big deal in the beginning, but it did gain a lot of momentum and speed with, look, we're taking away, money out of the pocket of these artists, really. So
Yeah.
it's the same type of thing for porn, I'm sure, right?
A lot of studios were put out of business, but also, I mean, there were some benefits because I think that producers have to care more now in order to survive. They have to really be in touch with their fan base and what their fans want to see, and they have to put the work in, because before the internet and years ago, before any of this stuff was an issue, people couldn't demand anything from their porn. They just had to take what they could get, and there was no way to voice your opinion about it, or you couldn't post a fan review anywhere.
Right.
You just had to live with what you got. And so as a result, I think porn producers could make a lot of money just churning out crap. They had no respect for the audience. And then the audience had no respect for the producers or the performers. And so it was kind of a relationship that was filled with contempt, really, on both sides. And I think some of that is starting to change now, which is a good thing.
Yeah, people can search out individual studios. I mean, back in the day, you used to have to go to the video store and go behind the curtain, and feel that level of shame, and a family video store or something like that. But now, in the privacy of your own home, you can get on the internet, you can search out what you're looking for without any real sort of guilt or anything, and experience what you want in your own home.
Also, there are online communities of fans that you'll find that like exactly what you like, and so people become friends on the internet. They form little communities based on enjoying the same type of porn. I mean, that would have been unheard of 20 years ago.
Yeah, we've talked about this before on the podcast, and not really about porn, but just in general with the internet nowadays, you can connect to people that really, it's almost like a funnel to come down into the real issues that you're concerned with, or the real things you're interested in. And in your community, there may be 100,000 people in your city or whatnot, but how many of them really are on the same level as you? It's hard to find people like that. And when you get online, especially in a global community now,
I think we can safely discuss these things online, because we can go online with fake names. We can be anonymous, and we can talk about things that we wouldn't necessarily talk about in our real lives, because we wouldn't have the courage, or we would feel like maybe we're weird, and we don't want to be viewed as weird. But when you're on the internet, you can find that so many people have the same little proclivities as you do, or they have this same esoteric interests that you have, or they're geeky in this weird way that you didn't think anybody else was geeky, in the same way that you were. And I think we're finding that even though we're all unique, of course, that we're not really that unique. That for every little interest we have, that there are other people who share it. And it's nice that people are finding each other, and they're feeling less alone, and less like outsiders, I think.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think normalcy is highly overrated. I mean, being weird, everybody is weird in their own way. I mean, there is no really such thing. I mean, there's a baseline, I guess, but nobody's really normal. When you dig into somebody, you're going to find stuff that is, things are different for everybody. It's different strokes. Just we were talking about the different spectrum of sexuality. It's the same thing for everything. If you want to talk about food, if you want to talk about politics, you want to talk about music. Everybody's got a wide variety of what they like. So to pigeonhole somebody in any type of location, that always kind of gets under my skin. If somebody finds out that I'm a football coach, and they're like, well, you must be, a meathead, a sports junkie, and things like that. Well, not exactly. No.
Yeah, there's
So what are you saying?
studies
Are
that
you
are
against
things
sports?
about
Well,
that.
no, not exactly. I mean, I don't like to be pigeonholed with anything. So I have a lot of different opinions. Most people do, and it's not something that living life is on your own terms. So whatever you're into, I believe that you should be able to make a conscious decision. We're all free people. We're free individuals, and I think having online communities is great. You know, it used to be looked down upon, you know, especially with like online dating. Oh, where'd you meet your boyfriend? Well, we met on the internet. Don't tell anybody. You know, it's not like that anymore. It's the internet is very pervasive through society. I think everybody's kind of getting used to the fact that look, there's more people out there than just in your little community or bubble that you can drive through. I think it's important to find others' opinions and assimilate those into your life if they resonate with you. That's my opinion.
Yeah, there are pros and cons. You know, there are drawbacks to the internet, but
Sure.
that's one of the positives I think in people being able to feel less isolated and less alone because they're able to find people online that have things in common with them that they thought nobody else had in common with them. So that's definitely one of the positives.
Sure. There is a real danger also where you get too much involved with, you know, the digital version of yourself, I guess. And I
Yeah,
do think it's
for sure.
important to have those personal relationships in life where you actually feel and touch people and see their faces and the reactions. It's a much different interaction, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you don't have, I mean, we have, you know, what emojis or emoticons, but I mean, we've evolved to communicate through more than just words. We are speaking. We, you know, tone of voice, facial expression, body language. All of these things are so important in being able to understand each other and comprehend what's being said and how it's being said and the spirit in which it's being said. And you do lose a lot of that online. I was actually just writing about this in an essay that you know, this is part of the reason why people are always fighting on the internet and why things can get so heated so quickly on the internet is that, you know, we don't have the benefit of those other social cues like, you know, just having the person sit next to you and you can see that they're joking or that, you
Right.
know, they're
Or a
not
frown.
upset with you or they're, yeah, or maybe they're, you know, they didn't mean it that way and you can tell when you hear them, but when you're just reading words on a screen, you think, well, what is this jerk saying, you know, and I'm going to say something back. And then before you know it, it's escalating. And these are two people who don't even know each other.
Right.
So, you know, there are definitely things that drawbacks and things that need to be ironed out in order for it to really be, I think, considered a primary means of communication or meeting other people, things like that. I think now with things like Skype and what's it called, FaceTime, where you can see people and get a little bit of a better sense of them, maybe that will help. But I don't think anything can take the place of interacting in real life with somebody who's right next to you.
I agree. And there's nothing better than the real thing. So, I mean, you can masturbate or you can have sex. So, which would you prefer? I would usually
Right.
take sex. So, same type of thing, I would imagine.
Yeah, some
Uh,
people might not, but
yeah, it's true. True.
but
Different
you know,
strokes again, right?
exactly.
All right. Well, when you transitioned to your own studios, how rewarding was that for you? I mean, there must have been some kind of something to push you in that direction. What were you trying to accomplish? Just exactly what you're doing now, or did you have a
Yeah,
transition to what you're doing?
I did want to expand out from what I was doing. I had um I had created a studio called Sweet Sinner that was basically like a boy girl, you know, version of my lesbian porn line. And so it was storylines and it was real sex and it was quickly termed romance porn. And the line started doing very well. So then other studios started putting together their quote romance porn studios. And um, that was never really my intention was to create, you know, romance, lovey-dovey stuff. I just wanted to be able to show something that would look like an emotional, real seduction leading to real sex. But the sex that I wanted to depict wasn't necessarily romantic. It ran the gamut from, you know, really rough sex to tender sex to, sweaty and hot to beautiful and sensual. It could be any number of things. And so I wanted to continue along the same lines in showing a spectrum of real sex in movies with transgendered performers, in gay movies. But with my former partner, they didn't feel that I should move into those areas. And they wanted me to stick with just doing what I was doing, which was, lesbian porn and straight porn. And so once I had the opportunity to go outside of that creatively, I really just felt like I had to do it because that was always my goal.
When you say romance porn, all I can think of is like Fabio on the cover of a DVD or something like that.
Right. Yeah, me too.
It seems,
I like that term.
Yeah, it seems real cheesy, but you're going for the opposite effect on that, obviously.
Well, I wanted to show that sex could be different things in different situations. And, I wanted it to, I just wanted to show real sex. And so yeah, just calling it romance porn, I felt like that turned it into something different than what I was going for.
So when they say that, when the critics were talking about romance porn like that, is it just because it didn't revolve around a money shot? That's how it was coined that way?
Right. It was also called couples porn because it was thought that this was directed toward women and couples because it was, storyline and, it looked like real sex. And also because I tended to use performers that looked more like real people. A lot of the females in my movies would be in their 40s, their 50s. I'd use older men, show all kinds of different people with real bodies. Not everybody looked like a Barbie doll.
Yeah, sure. There's not many real Barbie dolls out there.
Yeah, and that's and so people felt like, oh, this is for women because they're not seeing the Barbie doll types that are threatening to them. Now there's more real women like themselves, so this must be directed at them. But really the men were asking for women that looked more like their wives and girlfriends and, the girl they dated in college. A lot of guys don't want to see the type of depictions of sex or women that people seem to think they do. So guys were feeling very restricted by what was out there as well. And, they would watch it and buy it anyway. Guys, I think, really do, they have a real need to see porn and would always support it, even if they don't necessarily love what's being offered. Men have more of an interest in porn from what I've been able to discern, but that doesn't mean that they didn't want to see something different, and they were very supportive of what I was doing from the beginning.
So what do you look for in an actor or an actress? Is there something specific that you're looking at? Do you like to see them previously? Do you like newcomers? How does that work?
Well, they have to have a certain approach to their work. They have to not just view it as a paycheck. They have to view it as something they take pride in and believe in, and
artwork.
Yeah, they have to. This has to be something more to them than let me just show up and go through a couple different positions and try to get out of there as quickly as possible and fake my way through it. It's funny because people criticize, like, quote, gay for pay performers, and there's so much emphasis put on that, but there are so many straight performers completely faking straight sex that they have on camera. Just because
sure.
you're oriented a certain way doesn't mean that you're attracted to your co-star, that you want to be there, that you can take any pleasure in what you're doing at all. None of those things follow necessarily. There might be somebody who's happily married. There might be a woman who's happily married to a man, but she absolutely loves and believes in her work when she performs with other women, and she gets turned on and she has orgasms, and it's something that she takes very seriously. So to focus on whether, oh, but she's married to a guy in real life, so she's gay for pay, it's like, don't even think along those lines, because you would be surprised at how many, straight performers hate what they do and don't want to be having sex with their co-stars or working in porn at all, even if they're working with somebody of the opposite sex.
Sure.
So I look for that philosophy and approach to work. I look for somebody that can do some acting and that can bring some emotion to their role, that isn't just, flat and unable to recite dialogue and things like that. People that are interested and dynamic and that care about their work. Those are the performers I look for.
It's interesting. We're talking about, these hard lines, whether I'm straight, I'm gay, I'm bisexual. I mean, the lines are very blurred. I mean, if you look deeper into somebody and whatever they're going to tell you to your face, I think probably everybody has some kind of level of homosexuality versus heterosexuality built into them.
I think so too.
Whether they explore that or not, it's up to them entirely, how far along they want to travel on that. But I think that now, I mean, you're probably a better judge on this, but we have like basically a sexual revolution coming on, or it's been happening, and this is more than the typical free love of the 60s. I'm thinking of is, we have gay marriage. It's a very real issue now. It's becoming more and more mainstream. A lot of people are almost seen as of an asshole if they're not for gay marriage, which I follow that kind of line. I don't understand how anybody could hold somebody back from spending time with somebody that they love, whether you want to call it marriage or partnership or whatever it might be. It's none of their fucking business. It's, it's between two people or even more than that, if that's what you want out of a relationship. So I just don't understand.
Well, people are resistant to change,
Sure.
anything that, they perceive as attacking their way of life, their belief systems, their parents' belief systems, what they were raised with, the religion they were raised in.
I just don't see why it's such a threat to people. I mean, I understand it's different, but for me, I don't look at it as a threat. I've never been with a man, but that doesn't mean that I can't have compassion for somebody who wants to be with a man.
Well, right, and I think it takes time for people to really look at what they're thinking and what they're feeling and figure out if they really do feel this way and if their response is legitimate or if it's just social conditioning and they were, they take the position without even thinking about it because that's what everybody around them has always said, or, there's this, in their community, maybe they come from a conservative community where everybody is against gay marriage and they don't even explore it for themselves. I think most people don't really think for themselves.
Right,
and
they
they
just trapped in, right.
They follow the crowd and it takes work to really sit there and go, what do I think? And why do I think it? And am I being fair? Those are tough questions to ask yourself, and not everybody does it.
As far as education for people out there, I'm speaking largely about children. I have a couple children myself, 8 and 12. And from a very young age, it was important for me and my wife to bring them up knowing about sex and not being so scared about it or hearing kind of horror stories or whatever, and encourage them to, explore that, but let them know that there are boundaries. And
right.
How important do you think it is to avoid sexual repression with children? And what's your opinion on sex education for children in general?
Well, I mean, children meaning what age group? Obviously, you don't want to put too much on a child before they're ready for it, before they can really understand it.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want my 8-year-old seeing a fetish video of spanking and having asses whipped open, and I think that's a little intense for an 8-year-old. But no, I'm talking more about. When do you think it's an appropriate time to bring it up? I talk with parents.
I think it depends on the child. I mean, I don't think there are any, there's no mathematical equation for, at what age does the timer go off where it's now time to talk to your child about this and to this degree. Different children, some children are more curious at an earlier age and it becomes important to broach the topic with them sooner. Another child may not be as curious and may not be as comfortable. I don't think that you should force these conversations on a child who's obviously not ready for it, not comfortable with it, not curious about it. But in general, I just think, it's kind of like osmosis. If you're not ashamed of sex, if you're not, repressed as parents, if you have a healthy attitude about it, that will just come through. That will be communicated in nonverbal ways to your kids, and they'll feel comfortable bringing things up, asking questions, just like they would any other topic. It's when they're made to feel that this is something shameful, this is something dirty that they shouldn't talk about, that I think they develop, these neuroses about it, and then the parents get uncomfortable because the kids are uncomfortable, everybody's uncomfortable. So
sure, I think when I look at society and how the world is viewed from a sexual standpoint, I think that it is a problem that it's repressed. I think that modern culture has, we're talking about a sexual revolution, but there's also a large stigma attached to sex for the most part, I would think.
Well, I think too, because it's something that a lot of us have trouble controlling, understanding and controlling our, quote, desires. People cheat on each other. They give in to temptation to have a sexual encounter that can end up destroying their family, destroying the trust that they have with their partner. There are all these things that make sex seem dangerous and like Pandora's box. And I think that we're still struggling with that, and with the fact that it's this very powerful primal urge that we have that sometimes gets the better of us and can cause real damage to our relationships. And so we find it very suspect and like a negative force. I think a lot of people see it as something that has to be repressed or controlled, or it will take over and ruin your life, and you'll be a sex addict, and you'll be having sex with everybody, and your marriage will break up, and there are all these things that people worry about, and some of these things are true. I mean, sex can be like a drug, and people can get very compulsive about it, and it can be a damaging thing, just like overeating can be a damaging thing, and you can get addicted to anything that's pleasurable.
Well, you're talking about cheating and things like that. Do you think that monogamy is something natural, or do you think it's something that has been portrayed by at least American culture to be, this is the way it should be?
Well, this is always interesting to me, that there's this either or kind of, we're not really monogamous as human beings, and so we should all be,
hedonists,
or we should all be. Yeah, there's this kind of. I mean, the fact is, I think it's pretty clear in what we know about the way we evolved and the way our societies evolved, the way our species evolved, is that there were many different strategies that were successful for human beings. Monogamy was successful. Also, putting your seed everywhere
right.
could also be successful. The idea in nature is that your offspring will survive.
Sure.
So
when you say monogamy is successful, by what terms do you mean exactly?
In terms of your offspring surviving.
Okay.
Your genes being passed down from, a purely biological standpoint. As a strategy, monogamy has been successful for a number of species. There are monogamous species of animal, and they're monogamous because it's been successful for their species, and because humans are complicated and resourceful, and we have these big brains, and we're able to come up with different ideas of how we might accomplish something we want to do. A lot of different strategies developed. that were, quote, successful. And so there were those, early ancestors who decided, well, instead of staying here with this one mate and, having a few offspring with this one mate and really devoting myself to my, quote, family, I think I'll travel around and impregnate as many females as I possibly can.
It's a good way to get the seed out. Yeah.
Right, and out of the 40, and I won't stay and devote myself to any of these children, but out of those 40 children that I have, maybe 5 of them would survive. Out of the few children that this quote caveman or whatever might have with the mate that he's devoted to, maybe both of those children would survive, or maybe one would survive and have a lot of resources available to it and thrive and do very well. And so either way, that the male's DNA would be passed down, and the strategies that were encoded in that DNA would be passed down. So now you have another male that goes, you know what, I don't think I'm gonna be monogamous. I feel the need to just do it a different way. And so different strategies developed. And I think that some of us are naturally monogamous. I think that our ancestors succeeded and were here because of monogamy, and we have that encoded within us. And we are happy when we're monogamous. Other people are truly not happy being monogamous. It does feel unnatural to them, and it doesn't make them bad people. I think that's encoded in their DNA. That was the strategy that worked for their ancestors. So I don't think there's an either or when it comes to humans. There are too many things that work for us. And especially now, everybody's so complicated and everybody's an individual, and we go through different phases. People go through phases where they decide they're not monogamous, and then they decide they are, or they're try the lesbian lifestyle for a while, and then they decide they're really straight. People are all over the place these days. Sure. So I don't think there's one way to be a human being anymore.
Yeah. Well, human beings are interesting creatures, to say the least. We all have our own way of doing things, and
we're very tortured.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we torture ourselves a lot of the times. How is it that you, how do you find your moral compass? What's your spirituality like in your life?
Meaning?
I mean, do you practice meditation? Are you religious? Martial arts?
No. I did kickboxing for 6 years. I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
I got a black eye.
Yeah, I guess that'll happen, right?
I try to kind of examine, on a fairly regular basis, whether I'm staying true to my core beliefs, whether I'm starting to inch away from them. Obviously, success can sometimes make you fearful of losing your success, and you might start to compromise things that you wouldn't compromise before you became successful. So I try to stay on top of those types of things and just lead an honest life, an intellectually honest life. That's really my main focus, I think, morally. And try to be compassionate, be good to people. I'm not the most social person in the world, but when I do interact with people, I try to make sure that I am fair to them, and that I treat them the way that I would want to be treated.
That's kind of what I've gotten off of just reading some of the stuff that you've been a part of. I was reading your interview with Salon.com, and in there...
Oh, my essay.
Yeah. Oh, that's your essay. I'm sorry. In there it says, I've concluded I want my performers to be safe more than I want to be the most successful porn director. And I think it's important in there because in this article you talk about your rules on the set, and it seems like that whole sleaze vibe I was talking about in the very beginning of the podcast, that you kind of reiterated on that, because typically, well, in the article here, it's talking about how some performers are made to have sex outside or in dirty rooms and just unhygienic situations, and it seems like you take a very different perspective on that type of stuff.
I do, and I'm not the only one. The thing about porn that's kind of it's difficult for people to understand that, we all get lumped in with together, like the guy that, the sleazy guy that has a camcorder and rents a nasty little hotel room and puts an ad in a paper that he's shooting a porno and he needs a girl to perform. He's lumped in with those of us that have legitimate studios, and we're all considered porn, and there's such a wide spectrum, and there are very professional people and very caring people in porn, but you lump us all together and it doesn't look real good, and I don't think people outside of porn, they don't know how to make the distinctions, and why should they know? And so it's kind of up to us to make sure that we promote the right image of what we're doing and why we're doing it and who we are. And some of us are starting to do a little bit more of that now. And the internet's made it easier for us to go, hey, we're real people, and we're not all, on drugs, and we're not all idiots. And some of us actually have skills where we could be doing other jobs, but we really believe in what we're doing here, and we want to do something artistic here. And that's news to a lot of people who think that, you only become a porn performer if you can't do anything else, if you're on drugs, if you have no self-esteem, if you have, quote, daddy issues, all of these things, these beliefs have been perpetuated for decades.
Sure. And on the opposite side of that coin with technology, it does allow these sleazy guys with the camcorders and the motel rooms to get their stuff on the internet with content. So,
Sure.
I mean, it's technology for you. You can use it it's a tool. You can use it for good or you can use it for bad. However you want to classify that, that's very cool. It's a gray line,
As an industry, we have to find a way to separate ourselves and to create, create a community with standards so that people like that, are kept separate from what we're doing. And so that they, they don't get they can't operate in the shadows that way and get away with it, and we're just a long way from there's so many issues that are coming up right now in porn with condoms, with, health and safety, with, there's still no union for performers. And it's just, there's so much to do to turn us into a, quote, legitimate industry. And a lot of people don't really want that. They came to porn because they wanted to, get out of the system and be a little bit of an outlaw, a little bit of a rebel. And so there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of different opinions going around. Sure,
of course. Let's talk about condoms for a minute, because in that same essay, you talk about condoms and how. Well, why don't you give me your opinion on it?
Give you my opinion on what?
On condoms. In the essay, you're talking about the Measure B law. I'm grossly uninformed about on laws and on how to conduct yourself in a pornographic operation. So I'll have to excuse myself out of that. But in there, and it's true. I know when I watch pornography, I don't want to see a condom because it's part of losing the fantasy ordeal. Like, hold on a second, let me put this Jimmy hat on.
Right.
It kind of kills the buzz a little bit. But if there's a hot scene, I'm not going to not watch it just because there's a condom in the scene. So
that's the thing, and that's that's been the struggle is trying to figure out, because I do think that there's a legitimate, I said this in the article, there's a legitimate argument for retaining our First Amendment right to be able to shoot non-condom porn.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you can't say, well, I'm just gonna, it's my First Amendment right, so I'm just gonna put people at risk in order to maintain my First Amendment right. They have rights too. They have rights as, people in the workplace.
Sure,
they have
sure.
a right to leave as healthy as they were when they went in, and not leave set with any new problems, particularly not any life-threatening problems like HIV.
Yeah. Are you guys going to have an OSHA regulation for condoms out there soon, or what?
Well,
In California?
OSHA has been involved in this.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
For the time being, I don't see another way to keep performers safe on a regular basis and I'm not talking about HIV because we've actually done a great job of keeping HIV out of the talent pool for 10 years now. And even though there have been these recent HIV scares, none of them were, HIV wasn't contracted on set, it wasn't transmitted to anyone on set. So the testing system has been very successful in keeping HIV out of porn, out of straight porn. But as I said in my article, it's been less successful in keeping out some of these other STDs that are curable with antibiotics, but still can have complications and can make performers sick.
You're talking about gonorrhea and
gonorrhea, chlamydia.
Chlamydia. Okay.
Things that syphilis started making a comeback, and everybody freaked out about that. It's like you don't know what's next on the horizon.
Sure.
And so I think that that's really the best way to ensure that people will be safe is to make sure that they're wearing a condom, that there's a condom present in penetration scenes. And that means that I'm going to have to work harder to make the scenes really believable, really hot, that there'll be other things going on that will take the emphasis off of the fact that there's a condom in the movie. And also there are a lot of people that don't really feel that seeing a condom interferes. So, for those who do, I'll have to work harder to impress those folks. And
sure.
I'm sure that I'll lose some sales, but that's, as I said in my essay, that's a reality that I will accept. If the alternative is that people are getting ill when they work with me.
It takes a lot of integrity.
Well, I think that actually I'm ashamed that it took me so long to come to this conclusion, but you find when you're in a community and you're in a culture that, if there's a really strong belief system, a prevailing kind of belief system and conventional wisdom, it can be very hard to really look at what's going on and to really form your own conclusions about things. There's a lot at stake. And so it did take me a while to really examine what was going on, my own observations, and what I thought was the right thing to do. And then I was really afraid to come out and say it. And so I wish I had done it sooner, but at least I'm doing it now.
So all your films that you're doing now, they all are mandated to use condoms in, is that right?
Well, not my girl movies.
Well, yeah, I guess it really wouldn't fit the glove now, would it?
Yeah, and also, I'm not being completely radical about it. There's, like I've always said, there are different sex acts come with different levels of risk.
Right.
You can't really lump them all in together. You can't put a lesbian scene with no toys and no penetration in the same category as an anal cream pie gangbang.
Right. A little different there.
That's obviously far more risky, far more dangerous.
How about like for oral scenes? If you're doing whether gay or straight?
No, I will not be using condoms during oral scenes.
Okay.
There's a very, very minimal risk of any kind of, unless somebody were to ejaculate fully in someone's mouth and they were to swallow it, which I will not be doing. There's very minimal risk of any kind of transmission. Certainly, there's debate whether HIV has ever been transmitted that way, from what I've been able to find in my research. Theoretically, it can be, but nobody knows for sure that it has been. It's difficult to transmit it that way. So no, that's not something that I'll be requiring, but I will obviously still be requiring current STD tests,
Sure.
um, as well as condoms, so that at least we know, if you're kissing the person, performing oral sex with the person, that that they're tested and that their test says that they're free of sexually transmitted diseases. And it's not foolproof, but I feel pretty confident after doing a lot of research about it that if I put condoms on the performers and they have an STD test that's current, that everyone's going to be pretty safe on set.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. That's why they're designed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think though that the condom companies need to put on their thinking caps and come up with some better designs.
I agree.
Help us out a little bit here. They could make a fortune.
Yeah, they could. They'd have my dollars if they made a better condom, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's time.
They'd have more of my dollars, I should say.
Right, and the porn companies would certainly keep them in business. So.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's a gold mine for them.
Exactly. So hopefully they'll hear this and they'll feel inspired.
Yep. Well, just a couple questions before I let you go. We're coming up on our hour here. I know you got stuff to do this evening. What is your favorite film that you've made and why? Any genre.
My favorite film that I've made is called His Mother's Lover. It was my very first film for my gay studio, Rock Candy Films. It's a period piece, and the whole story came to me at once. It was just like it was like the porn gods, just it was divine inspiration. It was a very elaborate story that just came to me, and I wanted to do it as a period piece. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I set up every single shot myself in the movie. I just was very meticulous about making sure that everything was exactly as I had envisioned it, and it was a very ambitious project, and I did it knowing that it would probably be the only gay movie that I was ever able to shoot because everybody thought it was going to fail. And it succeeded beyond, it's my best-selling movie of all time, and it was the reason why I was able to go forward with my gay studio. So that movie is very special to me, and I think for artistic reasons and emotional reasons, it will always be my favorite.
Excellent. And my other question is, I've asked this on other guests for different topics, but do you consider yourself to be an ambassador for porn? And if so, what kind of responsibility comes with that?
An ambassador, meaning that I represent the
Sure.
porn industry?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I mean, all I think of myself as is someone that is kind of reporting back and trying to give an honest account of what's going on here and talk about it honestly and get meaningful dialogue going about it. I'm not trying to present a certain image, create an image or put forth an image that isn't true. I don't mind talking about the negative things in porn. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything that goes on here. So I wouldn't say I'm an ambassador. I would just say that I'm just trying to be a reporter, I guess.
Okay, fair enough.
And hopefully, inspire some dialogue and get people thinking in ways that they maybe wouldn't necessarily have thought before, consider ideas that they hadn't considered before, and that's about it.
What percentage of your viewers are men versus what percentage are female?
I don't know.
No.
I know that I think that more men still watch porn than
Sure.
women.
I would agree with that.
Shows, but there are reports that
There's a lot of closet porn watchers out there too, though.
Sure. women seem, to be becoming more open and even proud of their interest in porn, and they definitely are very vocal on Twitter and on fan forums about what they like and who they like. And a lot of women communicate with me through email, Facebook, fan forums about the movies and about what they want to see. So I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but I definitely see a lot of interest from both.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate our conversation tonight, Nica. What kind of future projects do you have, and where can people find you?
My studio websites are girlcandyfilms.com, rockcandyfilms.com, transromantic.com. My partner is aebn.net. That's the biggest VOD website in the world, I think. And my personal website, it's safe for work, so there's no nudity on there, is NicaNoelleStudios.com. And on there you can find articles I've written and, safe for work photographs and items of interest about my movies and things like that.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for being here. Our music is brought to you by Secrets Again. You can find his free tracks on SoundCloud. And please discuss with us some more on the website, Twitter, Facebook. Please subscribe to us on iTunes. If you do, give us a rating and a review. I know it helps the metrics and gets us out there a little bit more. Again, if you want to support us, we have the affiliate links on our website and the PayPal button. If you want to help us, most of all, you can just retweet the episode, share it on Facebook, share it with your friends, email it to somebody. We have a wide variety of different guests that have been on the podcast at this point after 16 episodes. And you can check out our backlog and our archive on that. So thanks again, Nica. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And hang loose out there, everyone.